All right, welcome to part two of my Q&A video, and I'm taking some questions today and doing my best to provide some answers. My next question comes from Jorge St. He runs a drum cover channel that is absolutely awesome. I know you guys probably are all familiar with George. I love what he does on the drums. He plays a Ludwig Vistalite blue drum set, clear blue drum set, very Bonham-esque, very big toms, big bass drum, big boomy sounds. And George is a really awesome and versatile drummer, and a lot of fun to watch, and I love the material that he covers. And he asked me what drummers inspire. He says what drummers inspire you. So what drummers inspire me? So I'd have to go all the way back to this is once again a long-winded answer, but probably the drummer that inspired me originally was Peter Criss. Now I know I said earlier in the video that my first concert was Kiss in 1985, and Peter Criss was not the drummer in 1985. That was Eric Carr, and but anyhow, I was always kind of a big fan of the early Kiss stuff, the 1973-ish to I don't know 1978 or so. The Kiss album and Dress to Kill and Hotter Than Hell and the live albums and Destroyer and Rock and Roll Over and Love Gun, and I think that Peter Criss had kind of a unique style. He was really kind of more of a jazz or swing, not necessarily a jazz drummer, but he was brought up in that era, and he had more of a swing feel, and so I think he had a very different style than the drummers that they later brought in, Eric Carr and then Eric Singer. And no disrespect to those guys, because I think those guys are awesome drummers too, but there was only one Peter Criss. In addition to that, I went to see a guy named Kenny Aronoff in clinic in the late 1980s, I think 1987-ish, and I was absolutely blown away. And Kenny Aronoff was initially John Cougar or John Mellencamp's drummer, and he played on Hurt So Good and the Scarecrow record, and just lots and lots of great John Mellencamp material. And then he later went on to be a studio drummer, a live drummer, and he's played with everybody. And watching him in clinic in the late 1980s, he really talked a lot about being a songwriter's drummer and playing parts that really support the music, and a lot of what he said there really kind of spoke to me. So I've got to give props to Kenny Aronoff. And then additionally, the next guy that once again really blew me away was Dave Grohl. And of course everybody knows who Dave Grohl was, but this was back in the Nirvana days when he was pretty much exclusively playing drums. And then of course when he created the Foo Fighters, he played all the instruments on the first record, and then he went back and re-recorded the drums on the second record. And until Taylor Hawkins started recording with the band, he basically was the guy for everything. And one of the things that really impresses me about the Foo Fighters is the way the drums and the groove kind of really fits with the guitar riff, kind of really fits with the vocals. Everything really fits together like pieces of a puzzle. And so Dave Grohl was the next guy that was a real inspiration. And then beyond that, Chad Smith, Red Hot Chili Peppers. I got the Chad Smith instructional video somewhere, give or take, around 1993, maybe 1994. I had that on VHS tape, and I watched that video over and over and over again. And I just, Chad was somebody that I felt like he made some really some interesting grooves and very entertaining drummer to watch, and very inspiring, and so I really enjoyed watching Chad Smith. But I'd have to say too, kind of circling around to today, what drummers do I think today are the most influential? And I think this is kind of an ironic answer, but sometimes you have to move back in order to move forward. And so the two drummers that I find most inspirational today are Ringo Starr and Charlie Watts. And I know that maybe not the answer that people are looking for, but I really do credit Ringo Starr as being the inventor of modern pop drumming. I mean, essentially the parts that he played and that he created in the Beatles really shape the way we look at the way we play pop drums today, as far as having different sections for the verse and the chorus. And I know that and the bridge and you know, breakdowns and breaks and things of that nature. I know that a lot of people really look at that as very elementary, but I think that he did a lot to create the drum styles that we have today. And then Charlie Watts too, and Charlie being a little bit more of a jazzier kind of guy, but nonetheless, I think you can't have a list of inspiration without including Ringo Starr and Charlie Watts. And my next question today comes from Rob Nienhuis, and I'm very sorry, Rob, if I'm mispronouncing your last name. Rob, awesome guy, I believe from the Netherlands, has a YouTube channel, and one of the things that I always enjoy Rob's drumming and Rob's videos, but one of the things that I've really got to say about Rob is he is a multi-instrumentalist. I know he plays bass, I believe he plays a little bit of guitar and keyboards, and some of his recent videos, he's doing a drum cover, but it also shows footage of him playing other instruments as well. And I think that really adds another element. I think that people that multi-instrumentalists are really where it's at. Those guys really know what they're doing. And so hats off to Rob, and please by all means go check out his channel if you haven't already. His first question is, how do you record your audio for your drum covers? And as Mike Luke had mentioned earlier, you know, am I going to start using VSTs? The short answer is no, I'm not using VSTs. So basically I have like the simplest drum cover method probably known to man. And where I learned to do this was basically from Justin Greenwald, I believe, of 65 Drums. And basically all I've got is an iRig. And an iRig is a small device that guitar players use for practice. And basically they plug, there's an 1/8 inch side to that they plug into an iPhone or an iPad or a tablet of some kind. And there's a 1/4 inch side that they plug their guitar cable into that, and they can actually play their guitar and listen to it through headphones and use their iPad or tablet or whatever as like a little amplifier console basically. And so you can take that device and there's I think they've got an iRig, an iRig 2, and there maybe even be like an iRig Pro. And I think I've got the most basic version, and you can find them on the internet for like, I don't know, 10 or 15 bucks, maybe even less than that. And I think the iRig 2 is probably more like 50 bucks, and the iRig Pro is probably more like 100 bucks. But you don't really need all that stuff. I've got the basic, just iRig, and so I run a 1/4 inch cable out of my drum module. Directly into the iRig. The 1/8 inch side of that goes directly into my iPad, and that's how I record my drum covers. I use iMovie as an application in my iPad, and I use that for editing. And so basically when I say editing, I mean once the recording is done, there's not really anything I can go back and do to like remix it or anything like that. But what I do use the iMovie editing features for is I will take off the front end and the back end. You know, basically, you know, I turn everything on, and then I have to walk to my drum set, and I have to turn on the music, and you know, I've got my iPhone runs directly into my module, and that's what's providing the music for me to play along to for my drum cover. So I can basically edit that, you know, first 30 seconds or so off that I'm sitting there and fumbling around with all my stuff and trying to get it all set up, and then at the end of the drum cover, I've got to get up and walk around the drum set and turn everything off. So I use my iMovie application for editing purposes, and basically the only editing that I'm doing is I'm taking the front end and the back end off, and you know, I might apply like a filter to it. In certain cases, I might use like a black and white filter or something along those lines. But and then I go to Wikipedia and pull up the song title and the band and take a couple of pictures from that. And I use a picture at the beginning of the cover and at the end, and one for a screenshot. And usually I try to use like maybe the album cover or something along those lines for the first picture, and then like a band picture for like the end of the video. And then I also go to Wikipedia and you know, use the song title and get some, you know, some fun fast facts about the song and when it was recorded and where it was recorded and basically whatever they have to say, and I plug that into my description. So that's basically how I record my drum covers. I use iRig, my iPad, iMovie, and Wikipedia, and I put all this together. Now, there's some pros to it. I believe that, if you had to look at it from a quality standpoint, if, 1 being very poor and 10 being excellent, I think that, using what I'm using probably gets me somewhere in the 5 to 6 range as far as quality is concerned. I'm able to get a pretty decent mix and decent sounds, and I can put together drum covers relatively quickly. And by using this method, there's no syncing involved. Basically, there's one file that's going into my iPad, and it contains both audio and video. And so the playing, the video part and the audio part are always synced up perfectly. That's never an issue. The downside is I can't go back and remix it. I can't use drum software to improve my sounds, and I'm really limited as far as there's a lot of guys that like incorporate videos and stuff like that within their drum covers, and I'm really my hands are kind of tied as far as that goes. So I don't really have the opportunity to do that stuff. So, like I say, I think what I'm using and the way I'm doing it, probably puts me solidly at a 5 or 6 as far as quality is concerned. And so for right now, that's pretty much where I'm at. And his second question is, do I always use drumless tracks? And the answer to that question is, yeah, pretty much. There's been a handful of exceptions. The videos that have been posted that were not drumless tracks are World We Know by Collective Soul and Love and Touch and Squeezing by Journey. Those were not drumless tracks. And in addition to that, I've got 2 more that have been uploaded but have not been posted yet. One is Love Song by The Cure, and the other is Janie's Got a Gun by Aerosmith. And I prefer to use drumless tracks if I can, because I think actually the guys that are playing drum covers and not using drumless tracks, they're using the original tracks. That's actually a much harder, steeper curve, because you literally have to play over the drums, and and you either have to match up note for note, or you have to create something that basically obscures what was originally played. And I think that's a very tall order. I think that if you can play along to a drumless track, then that kind of gives you more of an open palette to be able to put your interpretation on. And then the last thing I would say to that too is, there's another challenge in all this, and if you're using drumless tracks, some of those tracks are relatively easy to play along with. There's, you can follow the bass line pretty easily, or a guitar line or something along those lines. But some of them, there's sections of the song where maybe the bass line and or the rhythm guitar part and or the lead break kind of diverge a little bit, and so it's kind of hard to keep it all together sometimes. And I would use this as an example. There's the Cream song, White Room. There's sections of that song that were incredibly difficult to try to keep everything together, because everything kind of diverges in a couple of sections of that song. Janie's Got a Gun, there's a drumless version of that, but the lead break really I was not able to play that song to the drumless track version, because the lead break is so out of sync, I guess, with the rest of the song. And ideally, using a drumless track and a click track would be probably the absolute ideal best way to go. But trying to start your click track exactly in sync with your track that you're recording to, that's a challenge in and of itself as well. So the short answer is, most of my drum covers are done to drumless tracks, with a very few exceptions, and I'm working on trying to maybe use some more original tracks in the future. That's certainly an avenue that I want to go down, because, like I say, on the drumless tracks, you've got a really wide open palette to play to, but you're also limited by what songs do they have drumless tracks available to. And there's a lot of songs that I would really love to cover that I can't find a drumless track to. So. Okay, my last question today comes from Uzibooboodoodoo, and I'm sure you guys know who he is, but for anybody that doesn't know, he is probably one of the most creative drum cover YouTubers out there, and you would be doing yourself a great favor by going and checking out his channel. He puts together videos, drum covers with videos that I mean, the man's an artist. He's a genius. Go check him out. He's got 2 questions for me today. First one is, what was your first drum cover? And yay, I can finally answer a question really quickly and really short. It was Love Me Two Times by The Doors. I posted that drum cover in October of 2017. So we're coming up on just about 1 year anniversary since my first drum cover. It was Love Me Two Times. Originally, I did not have it titled as a drum cover. I had it titled as Messing Around with My TD-30. And basically what had happened there was I had gotten a TD-30 electronic drum set, Roland TD-30 drum set, and I wanted to just kind of mess around and see if I was even able to execute a drum cover. And so I chose Love Me Two Times by The Doors. It's a song that I've played many times with a band going all the way back to I played with those guys back in the late 80s, but you know, I had been playing that song with them for a number of years, and so it was a song that I was really comfortable with. And that was the first video that I posted on YouTube as a drum cover, and eventually I just went back and retitled it Love Me Two Times Doors drum cover, and I may have even put drumless track in there. So that was my first my first drum cover that I recorded. And then his next question is, what are my biggest influences? And I would circle back to the answer that I gave to Jorge St, talking about Peter Criss and Kenny Aronoff and Dave Grohl and Chad Smith and Ringo and Charlie Watts. But he adds on to that what YouTube drummers inspire me. And this is an excellent question, and I'm really, really glad that somebody asked it, because that I very definitely have an answer for this. The first guy that I saw doing drum covers on YouTube was Rhythmantic Sal. And I had played the drums for roughly 20 years, and then I had stopped for 10 years for work, and then I had come back to playing the drums. And back when I played, back in the day, we didn't have drum covers on YouTube and stuff like that. I mean, when it came to learning songs, we had to sit down with a record or a cassette or whatever and play it back and forth over and over and over again. And I was always terrible. I didn't play anything right. I came up with something that worked for the songs that I did. And so anyhow, I say all that to say, I got back into playing the drums. The pastor at my church approached me and said, I see from your spiritual gifts survey that you play the drums, and we're looking for a drummer in our church. Can you fill in and start playing the drums some? And so, there was all this material. Number one, I hadn't played the drums in many years, but number two, there was all this material that I needed to learn. And somebody in the group suggested that I type in the song title and drum cover, and what do you know, up pops a video basically showing you how to play the song. And so one of the first guys I found was Rhythmantic Sal, and I was always blown away at his incredible vocabulary, so many videos over so many years, and just great quality. And he played another reason that I found him and liked him so much. He played a lot of contemporary Christian covers, which that's kind of the setting that I was looking to the type of songs that I was looking to learn to play. He uses typically one camera angle, but it's a camera angle where you can really see what he's doing. The sound quality is always good. I really view Rhythmantic Sal as a resource to drummers. I've played for a long time, and I feel like I'm certainly not, I'm certainly no great shakes by any stretch of the imagination, but I feel like I do know my way around a drum set to some degree, but I don't know every song. And sitting down and watching Rhythmantic Sal really helped me to learn a great deal of material in a short period of time. And then additionally, after starting with the church band, I started in a 60s and 70s classic rock band, and he's got an incredible selection of 60s and 70s songs on his channel as well. And so that was the first guy that I started watching. Then I was like, wow, this is really cool. The next guy that I found, Drum Dog 69, Mike Fournier. I had been watching Rhythmantic, and he has a lot of classic rock covers from the 60s, from the 70s, from the 80s, maybe a little bit into the 90s, and a lot of contemporary Christian music. I found Mike Fournier, and he's playing Rat songs and Motley Crue songs and Metallica songs, and he's playing 80s music that I grew up listening to. and I was like, wow. I mean, that, that the light bulbs really went off after I saw that guy. And he does all the stick twirling and left hand lead and right hand lead, and once again, just an absolutely fabulous resource to learn to play songs. And then, last but not least, the one and only, the guy that everybody knows, Beats by Jay. I discovered him next, and what can you say, man? Jason Ozant, absolutely excellent drummer, excellent covers, just a great quality stuff that he puts out. Back in the day, playing his Roland, I believe Roland TD20 kit, and then he got the Joe Becky kit. I think that was the first time I'd seen a Joe Becky kit, or like acoustic looking drums that were actually electronic drums. He's got an awesome studio setup. He's got lights. He's got all kinds of stuff, and his videos are just the sound quality is great. The playing is very accurate. His eye for detail is incredible. He plays a lot of classic rock stuff. He plays a lot of metal stuff. So I mean, those three guys, honestly, when I think about influences from a YouTube perspective, Rhythmantic Sal, Mike Fournier, and Jason Ozant, Beats by Jay, those guys would be the guys that I would say were. All right, guys, my last question today. I want to wrap up the Q&A video here. This is the end of part 2 of my Q&A video, and my last question comes from, and I know I'm going to butcher this name. This guy, his YouTube channel is one of my absolute favorites. I love the music that he does, but I'm probably going to butcher his name. And so anyhow, I'm going to give it a shot here. I believe his name's Mike Fournier, or Fournier, and his stage name there is DrumDog69. And the question that he asks is, what styles of live bands have you played in, and did you do drum corps? And the quick and easy one is, did I do drum corps? Actually, no. I really, really wish that I had. I feel like ultimately that would have helped me out a ton. I always feel very limited by my drum vocabulary, by my lack of drum vocabulary, and I feel like if I had done drum corps early on, then that would have certainly helped me out a great deal in terms of my playing. But unfortunately, I did not do that. And then as far as the live bands that I played in a handful of bands over the years. First band that I played in, I actually still jam with those guys. I'm friends with those guys. We've been playing together, or we started playing together over 30 years ago, 1987, I want to say. And funnily, the name of the band was called the Vulgars. And initially we started off just doing classic rock, pretty much what everybody else does. Some Jimi Hendrix, Bad Company, The Who, stuff like that. And as we were evolving as a band, as a cover band does, we decided that this is like the late 1980s, and we wanted to try to do something different. We felt like there were a lot of bands that were doing the same type of material, and so what our evolution took us to was basically doing some 1980s college radio music, and doing bands like U2 and REM and The Cult and The Cure, and then there's probably a lot of bands that we played that nobody ever heard of, like Driving and Crying and Guadalcanal Diary and the Smithereens. But it had that kind of 80s college radio kind of heavy folky pop kind of mix to it. Was kind of the way I would describe all that stuff. And that band over the years evolved to covering lots and lots of different things. And we got heavy into the grunge thing in the 90s, and then the Foo Fighters and the Chili Peppers coming into the later era of the 90s and into the 2000s. And so anyhow, and then another band that I played with, we were called Plywood Smile, and we started off doing originals, but then we kind of evolved to covers, and that was pretty much your run-of-the-mill classic rock covers. And I played in another band called Nero, which was an attempt at being a really heavy band, but doing like some some unusual type of heavy stuff like Tool and Perfect Circle and stuff along those lines. It was an original band. We didn't cover Tool or Perfect Circle, but that was kind of the vein that we were trying to go in. And then I also played in another heavy original band called Rogue Society, and Rogue Society had two really awesome guitar players, really shredder guitar players, and we did it was, once again, it was original rock, but it was kind of that 80s shredder guitar vibe of 80s rock. And so that was a lot of fun. And then most recently, I've been playing in a band called Hectic Electric, and we do some really old classic 1960s and 1970s covers. But I guess what I would take from all this, I guess I've done a lot of music from the 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s. But I guess one of the points that I want to make, playing live and playing with other musicians is probably really and truly where it's at when it comes to music. And most of the guys on YouTube that are doing covers have done that before, so they know exactly what I'm talking about. But what I will say about doing a YouTube channel and doing covers is, for lack of a better word, and I don't want to come across the wrong way, but it's kind of a selfish thing. Bands are a compromise. Bands are always have been a compromise, and they always will be a compromise, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, it's a compromise of time. It's a compromise of relationship. It's a compromise in every way, shape, or form. But the other thing is in terms of material selection. I mean, when you play in a band and you number one, you choose music to cover or to perform that you enjoy, but also it has to be within your ability level. And when you have a 3-piece or 4-piece or 5-piece or 6-piece or 7-piece band, you have to choose material that your singer can sing. You have to choose material that your guitar players can play. You have to choose material that the drummer, myself, can play, that the bass player can play, that represents the instrumentation that you actually have. The beauty of doing covers, though it is the beauty of doing drum covers on YouTube, though it is very selfish, basically the songs that I choose on YouTube are basically just songs that I would have wanted to play regardless. And so I think, I don't have to think, is this a song that our singer can pull off? I'm playing along with, in most cases, an original track, and so that's not really a concern. So anyhow, I want to thank Mike for the question. Stuck it out this far. You are a far more dedicated YouTuber than I am, but anyhow, I want to thank everybody for stopping by and for checking out the video and for submitting your questions. Running back through the list here, Uzibooboodoodoo, Rob Nienhuis, Jorge St, Steffa Bennett, Mike Luke, and Jay Klein, and Tony from All Classic Drum Covers. Thank you so much for sending in these questions. Thanks to any and everybody that watches. In addition to that, Johnson drummer Michael Johnson posted a comment. He said that basically any questions that he would have had already been answered. But he did send some words of encouragement, and I want to, Mike, you comment, I think, on every single video I post, and I want to thank you for taking the time to watch my videos and to comment and to interact. And Michael Johnson, absolutely excellent drummer. Lots and lots of contemporary Christian stuff, and in addition some modern stuff as well, some metal and some pop. Phenomenal chops guy, phenomenal drummer. Please go check him out. Everybody, thank you so much for stopping by today. I genuinely appreciate it. You guys have a great day. Take care. Thank you.